Hey everyone, this is Anirban here. I'm your host, and you are watching Insideletter podcast. Today, I'm gonna record the very first episode of Insideletter podcast with Darwin. So, Darwin is the part of product team at Beehiiv, the platform that's helping thousands of creators and brands build, grow, and monetize newsletter. As you know, Insideletter has the same philosophy. And Darwin is from Canada, and he has worked in Periphery Digital, LNG Studios, CIBC, and it's great to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Appreciate your time.
Can you please talk about who exactly is Darwin? If we detach you from your job role, who exactly is Darwin?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you mentioned, I live in Canada. I'm in the West Coast in Vancouver, in that area. Grew up here, and for the most part, pretty straightforward. Exercise, hang out with friends, family, girlfriend. I have a little side hustle that I like, and other than that, too much to share. Just pretty normal guy.
So, what got you interested in working on Beehive?
Oh, good question. Yeah. I joined Beehive fairly early in the journey. I think I was maybe the seventh or eighth employee. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it was early. It was in the first year that the business was operating. And at the time, I'd previously quit my full time job to do my own thing. And so I was building that. And then on the side, I started a Beehive newsletter. And then along the way, the Beehive newsletter became the full time opportunity. But fast forward after some personal stuff and with the last business selling, it was kind of a whole thing. There was a bit of a situation there. Long story short, I needed money. So I needed a part time job. And while I was using Beehive, Tyler, the CEO and co-founder, was answering my support tickets himself. So if I had an issue with Beehive, I would write to him and he would answer me. And as I started looking for part-time work, I realized I'm like, if he's the CEO, maybe he doesn't need to be answering support tickets. I can do that. So I sent him a cold email and I, in different words, told him, "You're the CEO. You're answering support tickets. I use Beehive every day. I can answer your support tickets. Why don't you hire me part-time? You go do CEO stuff and I'll do this." And so that's sort of how I first got to know Beehive using it and then later joined the team by emailing Tyler.
That's amazing. So, as you have been working with Beehive for the last 3 years, you saw the early days. So, can you please talk about what was Beehive like in the early days and what changed the most since then?
No, great question. I think like a lot of startups, especially when they're smaller, smaller team, not much process, if any. And it can feel very chaotic. And I think the early days of Beehive definitely had that, but it was also very fast paced. And there was always something going on. Like I remember my first month, I was answering customer support tickets, and I had a customer write in and say, "Hey, what's going on with this? It's not working." And I looked at the request and I looked at the feature they were talking about. I had never seen it before. And so I asked the team, I'm like, "Hey guys, did we release something recently?" Like, "Oh yeah, we released this. Sorry, I forgot to tell you." And when you're releasing six or seven things every week, every 2 weeks, naturally one gets missed. And when we're a smaller, scrappy startup, it just kind of has that feeling of kind of organized chaos where every day is different and there's always something exciting and new people are joining. And it's very fast. It's amazing, but obviously comes with a set of challenges of its own. As we've grown, we've obviously gotten a lot smarter about that. Now I think we have 105 people. We're doing like 30, 35 million or so, if I'm not mistaken, a year in revenue. 100 people. You have teams now who are responsible for these things. All those stuff that we used to take on the sides of our desks, we have dedicated teams to do, and they have process. They're experts in their field. And it's not just kind of like everyone trying to chip in where they can. It's much more organized and well put together without becoming bureaucratic. So while we have added process to make sure that we're working well for our customers, I don't think we're at such a big stage where you would call us like a 5,000 person company or something with process for everything and so on. We still have very much so that scrappy, fast paced part of us that's still very relevant in the day to day, even though we've grown. So we've come a long way. Still a long way to go. It's an exciting company. It's incredible, great leadership, and changed some, but we're at our core just talking to customers every day and solving their problems and just trying to be better.
Awesome. As you have been working with Beehive for the last 3 years, you know that there are a lot of competitors in the market. Like if we talk about the biggest competitor of Beehive, that is Kit. Earlier it was ConvertKit. So ConvertKit used to offer only email service, right? And later when they saw that Beehive is coming in the market only for newsletter part, which was really underrated at that time. So ConvertKit also changed itself into a creator first platform and introduced the newsletter section. So you all are building for creators. So, as per the product perspective, what do you think makes it stand out?
Great question. I think you bring up a good point, right? We do see a lot of people moving or trying to be moving the way we do, right? We have so many projects going on, so many initiatives, making it easier for people to start a newsletter or grow a newsletter. We have a whole suite of features dedicated to growth. We have another suite of features dedicated to monetization. Now we have recently, as we've released, the website builder project, the Dream Builder. And so there's so many things going on, and we're targeting so many people. One of them, like you've stated correctly, is creators for sure. We also have Time or the Boston Globe or the Texas Tribune as great customers of ours as well. And we have folks who are running their own small business, but then they'll have a newsletter on the side of that. So they're not necessarily a creator, it's for an established business, but they're also not media first. They have a product or a service they sell, and they have a newsletter next to that. So what we've done, which is very different, is we've targeted many different groups of people, and we're able to win their business and their trust so that they move over to Beehiiv. We were very new to the market. And a lot of people, I get this question often. It's, how does a company like Beehiiv enter into this industry seemingly out of nowhere? And a big part of it is because of the leadership of our company. So you asked me what's different is when we first started, we were targeting newsletter creators, but it wasn't a random set of features. Our co-founders originally came from Morning Brew, which is an extremely successful newsletter. They were some of the early employees building a lot of the tech and the products that Morning Brew used to grow and monetize and so on. And so because they have that experience, they know what newsletter creators need. If you want to build the next Morning Brew, whose product is going to be better for you than the guys who did that at Morning Brew, right? So there's an immediate fit there. And because we had that leadership who knew this and had that really strong knowledge base, they knew what to build, right? And so they could really target that one group. And then we expanded out from there. So what makes us different is, number one, it's the founders and the leadership team are very clear on the use case of what we're building. So the features that we build really work for them. We turn away a lot of feature requests, or we punt a lot of feature requests. We set them for later because we, at our core, all the way up to the leaders of the company, the co-founders, know exactly what makes sense or what doesn't for this use case and others. Second thing is, for that exact same reason, a lot of the features that we build solve problems that used to take 6, 7, 8 different tools to solve. We have this integrated referral program, which was a big hit at Morning Brew. And I've seen Tyler do interviews, and he's told us as well. People used to ask him, how did you build this? What software did you use for this? And the answer is they did it themselves. And now that is completely available to our users. You don't have to stitch together 7 or 8 different kinds of software. You don't need integrations. You don't need anything. It's just there for you. And it's actually quite straightforward and easy to use. Lots of companies take advantage of this, and it's a great feature. But no one else was doing that at the time. And so that's one of those things where we were a new player, but we were able to focus on the things that newsletter creators really wanted. And we've taken that same approach to all these different directions that we're focusing on, whether it's about growth or monetization or whatever else. Definitely a little underrated right now.
Also, I noticed that Beehiiv is gonna launch something on 13th November. I am just speculating that it is going towards a podcast integration or maybe a community integration, because I, as a user, expect that Beehiiv is launching something for us where we actually can build a one-person media business. Like, newsletter is a part of media, and there are so many people who are leaving their corporate job and they are coming to Beehiiv, and they are really making $6,000, $7,000 every month from only their just by writing the newsletter. So I am assuming that there might be some a shift in Beehiiv's perspective, or Beehiiv's down the line in the 5 years. Maybe Beehiiv will establish itself as a media company. I mean, as a creator first media brand where creators can monetize. Of course, they can monetize. It's already in Beehiiv right now, but maybe they can also bring their community members, like the subscribers can chat between each other. Might be there might be something like that. I mean, if I know that you can't reveal that right now, but if you can give some clue, like what Beehiiv is gonna try to do or Beehiiv is gonna do in the next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, we're taking over, but I can't tell you what we're going to do on that event day, unfortunately. So I think for a lot of people who are looking to see what the next big feature is, I would just say that, I mean, you're going to love it. It's going to be great. And I think it's going to solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. But I would also make a reminder is that creators are a really important part of Beehiiv and are like the core of what we're building, in my opinion. But I also think people are really quick to forget there are a lot of other kinds of businesses that really use Beehiiv successfully and get a lot out of it. So, a Time is a customer, for example, Boston Globe. I think I mentioned a few already. So, what I would say is a lot of people look to a feature set to help them build their media business or their creator empire or whatever we want to call it. And the features are going to be great. You're going to love them. But I would also encourage people to remember that a feature set can give you a boost, but what you need at your core is really great content. And I wouldn't want people to get to a point where they expect so much of the features that it will do the work for them. Content's still got to be great. Products still got to be great. The information you're sharing, it's got to hit. We got people out there who are looking for the next big feature to help them build their newsletter. And we're going to give you features that'll help you do that. But if you write a newsletter and I ask ChatGPT, same question, same topic, and ChatGPT's answer is better, you're looking for new features when you have a content thing to work on first. So really exciting features coming. They're going to be amazing. I just encourage people to remember that it's on the back of great content that amazing features can give you that boost to be great.
Content is always the king.
I think so.
So you have seen how thousands of creators use Beehive. So according to you, what are some of the biggest struggle they face when it comes to growing a newsletter?
Yeah, great question. Great question. And over my time at Beehive, like I previously wrote and published, sometimes myself, sometimes with the team, the Creator Spotlight newsletter. Are you familiar with that one? Yeah. So as part of that one, back in the day, I would often interview a lot of the today they're some of the biggest newsletters in the industry, right? The Rundown, Superhuman, a lot of the AI newsletters, some that were more design focused, some that were more B2B, but I've spoken to so many in that time. It was a little while ago, but when I look at them and how they became successful on a version of Beehive that didn't have the ad network, didn't have automations even, didn't have so many of the great features we have today. How is it that they were still successful? Yet people who have these incredible features, to your point, to your question, struggle. And I think a big part of it is one, the disposition or like the founder really, there's when I spoke to those guys and girls about their newsletters and their success, they were all extremely obsessed with the quality of their content and promoting their newsletter. It was nonstop. I remember very specifically speaking with Rowan from the Rundown, for example. It was his main point. Always on the research of what's going on in his industry, always posting, always working on it, and just really obsessed. So I think first is like, do you think you're working hard enough at it to really become as successful as you want to be? Me, I run a little newsletter. I write it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I publish it Thursdays. I don't really promote much as I should, but I know that, right? And I'm not expecting more from that. So my struggle, for example, would be promotion, putting myself out there, being able to get new subscribers, because I'm not doing that enough. You look at these people who are successful, they're doing it 5, 6, 7 times a day. So I think volume and promotion and just the time and effort on it is the first thing. Second, I think a struggle being, I guess, more in line with kind of what people might expect to hear is like, I think a big one is the quality of the content. A lot of people publish content that's okay, but because the AI models are so good, Grok is good, ChatGPT is good, they're good. People can get answers from elsewhere too. And so I think one struggle is being able to take what makes you you, or makes you credible, or makes you an expert, or just makes you interesting, and putting it in the newsletter content. I think that's where a lot of people struggle, because if it's just a report, like ChatGPT will give me one, these AI things will give me one in a minute. But what is it about your newsletter that's interesting to me that I cannot get anywhere else, that I can only get from you? That I think is really important. So I think that's where people struggle, is making their content different enough or authentic enough to them so that it stands out in some way. I think those are the two big ones. One is effort and focus, priorities, prioritizing the newsletter. And then the other more is about like what makes the content of your newsletter specific to you, and in that way, quote unquote, better.
So speaking of growth struggles, you probably have access to tons of data from top performing newsletters. So what patterns do you see among creators who grow fast?
What patterns do I see? Well, I think one pattern is just high volume work. Lots of promotion, lots of posting, lots of research. They just work hard at it, very focused, and they prioritize their content. And then in terms of patterns, like some there's all kinds of ways to grow. I think some people like to use meta ads, like that's a very popular one. Some people like to use co-registration, right? You sign up for one newsletter, there's a pop-up. Do you want to subscribe to these ones as well? And like boosts, for example, in Beehiiv is an example of co-registration. But there's also organic. There's partnerships. There's swaps. There's content swaps. Like I'll write in your newsletter and you'll write in mine. And there's all kinds of ways. I think as of right now, the things I see in growth that work really well is really good organic content. So not the paid ads, but you just make really good organic content and it works. Another one I see that works really well is being able to publish on other social platforms organically. Like video is another one, like Instagram Reels, TikToks. Those will drive subscribers. They may not be the right subscribers for your newsletter, but I've seen a lot of people do it. Quality is maybe not the best one, but it's good. And then that's in terms of patterns. I think typically paid ads is the third one, I would say. So it'd be like that, I guess. I don't have
The
a great
boost.
answer to that question, actually. I don't have a great question for the patterns that are a lot of these guys are using. I think there's like maybe 10 or 11 strategies or channels for growth, and it's some combination of them.
So let's talk about your product team. So when your team decides what to build next, how do you prioritize? What the process looks like behind the scene?
It's a good question. I think one thing about us that stands out is we don't have an incredibly rigid, structured process of like 17 meetings and 22 interviews and all these things. Like we don't necessarily look at it in that way. I think there are like a few sources that we look at that inform us on what we want to do, and then we'll plan for a sprint or a quarter around those. I think the first thing is there's a vision that the company follows, and that is set by our co-founder and CEO Tyler Dank, and that kind of sits at the top in terms of like the priorities of the business. And then underneath that, obviously, there's a split. Like you can't just drop a year's worth of work on people and be like, go, right? So we have to do that. So one thing that we do is, as a company overall, I'll get to the product team in a moment. We'll have like a weekly success list that is like, all right, these are the priorities of the week across the business. These are the top things that we care about. We talk through them on Monday, and on Friday we sit together, all hands, and we see how we did. And I think that kind of weekly cycle is very important because it helps really feed up into the monthly and quarterly kind of goals that we have. In terms of like the actual why did you pick this feature over that other feature, there's obviously the data behind it. There's the customer feedback that we hear and see. There's also kind of like the sentiment that we have in that particular period of time, right? Like if we know that there's something that's trending or something that people really want or something that no one else is accounting for, like we will consider that as part of the priority and part of the weight that determines if it gets prioritized, that feature or that request. And then I think another one that we have is we are very good at playing Tetris with the million things going on and being able to line them up in the right way. And I think the way our product team works is like we are very flexible to that. We can see very clearly these are all the initiatives that we have going on. Because these three are kind of related, let's batch them in this way. Because those ones block these, obviously we have to do them first. But maybe then we find out that this one thing that we were always thinking would have been great turns out that with more time, we've learned the reason why we thought it was the right thing to prioritize. And so we said, well, that reason for prioritizing is also resolved with this. So do we need this? Maybe we can remove it. And I think our product team works by prioritizing well, working hard, obviously. But also we're very good at being able to say no to the things that we believe may not necessarily have the biggest impact. And that's one thing I think that's one thing that helps us stand out, at least when I talk to other product folks or other business owners.
I have seen Beehiiv employees or Beehiiv team members are really very active on social media. Like when it comes to like I have talked with Steven, the guy who appears on YouTube. I have talked with Bella, the your social media strategist now. Everyone is very active on Twitter. Like the founder himself,
Yeah.
Tyler is very active on Twitter. He is replying to the users. He is on LinkedIn as well. He is replying there as well. So one thing is very clear that Beehiiv runs on the user feedback and user engagement. So when it comes to user feedback, like have you ever used any feedback which came to mainstream? Like you took the feedback and you implemented that and it make a big impact in Beehiiv's overall infrastructure?
Good question. And yeah, Steven's a legend. Bella Rose, she's great at what she does on social. And I think it's a big part of why a lot of people, that's why we broke out as the new player in the space, right? As we did that. We used to have a channel where it was just every time we were mentioned, it would pop up and we'd all click and like and comment and do something. And it was just like the Beehiiv wave. And it's great to see Bella Rose and Steven and Tyler's kind of since day one been doing this, but it's great to see that people recognize that because I think it's a great part of Beehiiv. But to your question, yeah, I've heard requests from customers that have become real features and sometimes verbatim. Sometimes we take it as like a guideline for like the problem that they're trying to solve with their request and we kind of work from it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a core major thing per se, but I do think there are a lot of small requests and changes that we've taken directly from customers that we've implemented. I think that with a lot of the enterprise business, we don't really talk about that a lot. We're not interviewed about that as much, but we've got Time, we've got the Boston Globe, we've got some amazing, very large legacy media companies who work with us, kind of like an enterprise thing. And with them, we do too, right? Because every one of these major enterprise businesses does things differently. They all achieve the same outcome though. So what's the thing that we build that can make as many of them happy as possible? And I think that is obviously they'll tell us exactly what they're doing and we'll look at all of them and say, how do we make this work for as many as possible while still being able to avoid building 20 things to achieve the same outcome just to sell to each one, right? And I think that's where the customer feedback is not necessarily something we take one to one, but it's something that we would say is really about the outcome. So yeah, we've had lots of feature requests that turn into things we build or deploy. We also have a lot of feature requests and like just straight up docs explaining how they do things that we kind of work from to try and land on one solution that hopefully works for as many as possible without sacrificing, performance, without sacrificing effectiveness and without feature bloat. So it's a big part of Beehiiv, in my opinion, the way we work with our customers.
The entire Beehive team works remotely, right?
Yes, the business is fully remote. Got people all over the world.
So let's talk about monetization, the most important part. I mean, whenever I open my Twitter, every freaking day I see at least 5 to 6 folks out there posting about how much they have made in the last month from Beehive monetization. So monetization is a really big part when it comes to Beehive, because when it comes to Kit, you have to use a Spark loop in order to monetize and in order to recommendation part as well. So when you are building the migration tools, what's your North Star? Like, what makes a migration feature genuinely valuable for creators?
Great question. And it depends on the feature. For example, we have our ad network, which is Beehiiv will secure advertisements from large companies, Nike, HubSpot, you name it, they're there. And in that part of the app, a user for their own newsletter can look at all of the ads they're offered, select the one they want, pick the creative, and within 2 clicks, drop it in the next newsletter. And so, in this sense, that is very valuable to creators because they don't have to get their own clients. They don't have to chase the invoice. They don't have to go back and forth 50 times to figure out the exact copy or the exact picture they want to use. And all of the calculations are done for them. So they don't have to argue. It's like, oh, well, I saw 15 clicks, but the customer will say, oh, we only got 10 from Google Analytics. So we have a problem now. We're only going to pay for 10, even though you'll see 15. There's none of that. It's a few clicks. It's in there. It tracks it, and you get paid directly to your wallet. So the way that the value of that works is very different, right? Like that's what makes it great. But there are other parts of monetization, such as we have a direct sponsorship storefront. So maybe you look at the ad network and you look at the ads we offer and you say, you know what, I don't like them, or they don't pay enough, or whatever. You can close your own ad deals with your own customers through our storefront. You can add your offer. So if you offer one advertisement at the top, you can put it there. It's $5,000 or $2,000 or however much. You can make an entire inventory, send your customers, they'll buy what they want from you remotely. They can enter the credit card info and you're good to go. You can sign your own. Now, that one is different because it's your customers serving themselves, being able to go in and buy directly from you through us. And it's a very low fee. I think we charge, it's like $10, I think, for every transaction. Like it's almost nothing. So it's like extremely effective in that way. But that is a monetization tool that is, the value is different than the ad network. value is that we facilitate that transaction for you. We collect everything. It's all built in so that when you go and add the advertisement to your newsletter, your post, it's all you've already taken care of everything with your client. You've been paid, and we still track everything. So it's all in that sense very effective. And then we have the last one, I guess the last big one would be boosts. Or as you mentioned, like there's a competitor like a co-registration basically where people who sign up to your newsletter, they'll get a pop-up that shows them my newsletter. And if they agree to sign up, I'll pay you because it was your subscriber who came to me, so you get the money, right? And that's kind of the bare bones thing about co-registration. And with that, it's more of like a network effect, right? For all the people who are trying to make money, there need to be people willing to spend money. And so we have to make it valuable for both sides. And so when we build monetization in general, we really want to hone in on like what's the use case here that we're solving for. Because when you make money on boosts, someone else is growing. But if their growth is not good, if your subscribers are not good, if they're not happy, well, then they'll stop throwing down the money, which means there's less ways for you to make money. So we have a very nuanced situation there. And it's due for an update. So, I mean, I'm really curious about what like we'll land on for the next iteration of that. But it's an incredibly exciting part of Beehiiv because we're making people millionaires. And I think that's the main thing is like, that's, if I say nothing else, it's like seeing creators and businesses make this kind of money is amazing, including you yourself, right? You've made money on Beehiiv. You sold a newsletter, right?
Right.
You did? Good.
All right. So as you know that for the last 3 to 4 years, newsletter came to mainstream. There are so many people who are starting their own newsletter business, and they are not considering newsletter as a side hustle. They're building it as a business. So where do you see newsletters in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, that's a great question because I certainly don't think they're going to go away. Like they're only growing. And I think that it's a very exciting time to be in email because of what opportunities are made available with new technology, right? So with with AI, for example, right? Like that's helpful for creating content, but it's also helpful for being able to filter content in the inbox. So I think it's going to become a situation where if you're great, it should get better for you. And if you're not quite great, it'll get a little bit harder for you actually. And I think the gap will start to widen a little bit, especially as more people enter the market. Like the people at the top will make more disproportionately. So I think, yeah, that's one is certainly not going away. And I think tech will really help create a bigger gap between the ones who are great and the ones who are not. I think also to know how like the newsletter industry will go, we also want to take a look at the bigger picture of like how those businesses are doing over time, right? If you are a creator and your business is doing okay, what would make your business incredible in the next 3 to 5 years? Newsletter may be a part of that, but being able to hone in on that and apply it to your newsletter is also really important because newsletter is a channel, right? Like you can have a great newsletter, but if you're a creator and you do something else somewhere else that completely destroys your reputation, that'll affect your newsletter. And I think that's still relevant, right? Managing your reputation is still relevant. And email feels like a really great way to do that. So I definitely see it growing for certain. How much, I don't know. But I also think it's going to start showing people who prioritize content and people who are doing well exceptionally more. Like people who are good are going to make way more money.
Right. Right. All right. So I have one final question for you. Like, let's say a creator came to you and say, Darwin, I want to build a newsletter business with Beehiiv. So, what 3 simple things would you tell him or her to start doing today?
Great question. Great question. I years ago started going with a newsletter full time, and I don't do that anymore. My newsletter is now a part time thing. So I guess the first thing I would say is if you really want to go full time on the newsletter, make it your business, publish every day. You want to be really prepared to put in a lot of hard work. This is not a tactic or marketing. Just the first thing is mentally, you got to be there. You got to be ready for that. You know, be prepared that it may not make money in the first 3 or 6 months, even, and be prepared that you may get tired of it. So if you're going to do it, like it's okay to spend a little extra time to make sure you really love what you write about or your content or the thing you cover. Because if it gets tough, like it's going to be hard to stick with it and you may want to give up. So be prepared and focus and prioritize. And that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is You really got to put yourself out there. Like promote, promote, promote. Like find ways of getting on different platforms, post videos on Instagram, post the things on X or Twitter, the threads or the even paid ads consider, like small amounts to start just to see how it is for you. But really put yourself out there. It's so important. And I think people don't give it enough credit. I think people say, I just wrote the most amazing thing in the world. I posted it on Twitter once and I didn't get any subscribers. Really got to get out there. And the third thing I would say is remember that like people became incredibly successful, millions of dollars with just a basic email newsletter. No automations, no boosts, no ad network, no fancy features, and they still became millionaires. So it's totally possible. And if it feels like you need a feature or something to help you win, there's probably something deeper going on there. So what were the big three? The first one was mentally prepare yourself to work extremely hard and prioritize and focus. Number two, promote, promote, promote. Number three, content is still everything without question. Because if all of these people can become super successful without the fancy features, like that's a content thing, right? Surely you can be as well. So be careful you don't give fancy features too much weight and you focus more on just what you're doing and the publishing and your angle and your story and your position in the marketplace with your content just as much.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Darwin, for coming today, and whatever you have shared, it's really gold. I mean, whatever goes on behind the scenes at Beehiiv. Also, you have shared simple, practical stuff for the creators who want to build a newsletter business in 2026, because we are just 2 months left with 2025. And if you guys enjoyed this podcast, make sure to send a thank you to Darwin. He is available on Twitter, very much active there. And Darwin, before leaving, if you can give one piece of advice to the new newsletter creators, what would it be?
One piece of advice to new newsletter creators. I think the three I mentioned earlier would be big. Be ready to put in the work if you want to go full time. And focus on your content. I think those are the big three. If I could add one more, it would be that like um, spend time getting to know the industry too. Like see the newsletters you like and why you like them, and try and figure out like what they do. And don't be afraid to find inspiration around you, and maybe reach out to people who inspire you too. I think a lot of people who were successful in the early days of Beehiiv had really solid relationships as well, right? They were very friendly with one another and they kind of formed little pods and they were pushing each other and promoting each other. And I would encourage you to not be shy in getting to know other people in your industry and just learning from each other. If you can, it could be some great tips from people doing what you're doing.
Do you have anything to promote to the audience who are watching this podcast?
Well, Beehiiv would be a big one with a big event. So if they could sign up for the event, that'd be great. I also publish my own newsletter. It's at darwinb.com. If they could subscribe to that, that'd be great.
Awesome. I'll put the link in the description for their ease. So
Thank you.
thank you, Darwin, for coming today. It was really amazing to have you in my podcast. And whoever is watching this podcast, make sure to subscribe this channel and of course send a message to Darwin. And thank you for coming today, Darwin, and thanks for watching this podcast. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day and take care.